Today is Tuesday, February 28th, 2012, and this is Faust Sueños After Dark. Today we have Past Sins, Chapter 10. It's been a while. Past Sins by Penstroke, assisted by Batty Gloom. Chapter 10, Treachery. The doors to the Ponyville schoolhouse burst open with cheers as little fillies and colts raced out wearing wide smiles. Among them were the Cutie Mark Crusaders, who laughed and giggled along with all the others. Behind them, Cheryl Lee walked to the school's doorway. She had a small bounce in her step and a bright smile on her face, for it was a day both she and her students had been looking forward to. School was officially out for the summer.
No more school! No more school! No more school!
Apple Bloom cheered several times, bouncing around like Pinkie Pie as she and the other Cutie Mark Crusaders made their way to the center of Ponyville.
Yeah, a full summer vacation to find our cutie marks. This is going to be awesome!
Scootaloo exclaimed.
So, what are we going to try first? Skateboarding? Paragliding? No, wait! We should be Cutie Mark Crusader bungee jumpers! That all sounds kind of dangerous, Scootaloo,
Sweetie Bill said anxiously.
And scary,
Nix added quietly.
Maybe we could start off with something easier,
Sweetie Belle suggested.
We don't want to go through all your awesome ideas right away, do we?
Scootaloo shook her head.
No, I guess not. How are we going to keep track of all our ideas anyway?
Apple Bloom asked.
After all, haven't we tried paragliding before? Did we?
Scootaloo asked, looking at her friends for an answer.
I don't remember,
Sweetie Belle said with a shrug. Nix mumbled.
I think I might have an idea to keep track of everything. What's that?
Apple Bloom asked.
Well, Twilight's always making lists to keep herself organized, so how about we do that? We can make a list of all the things we want to try to do to find our cutie marks, and then we can combine them and make one big list. That way, we'll know what we have and haven't done. Hey, that's a great idea,
Apple Bloom praised.
If we do that, we'll be sure to find our cutie marks in no time.
Scootaloo and Sweetie Belle both agreed, and the quartet quickly began hammering out the details of the plan. They each agreed to make a list that night and bring all the lists to Twilight's library the next day after lunch. Then, with a final Cutie Mark Crusaders chant, the group disbanded and each one of them ran home, each eager to try and think of as many things as they could to try in their search for their cutie marks. Nix practically galloped all the way back to the library, bursting through the door when she arrived. She then raced across the floor towards Twilight, who was working to put some books back on the library shelves. Unable to contain her excitement, Nix tackled Twilight, an endless stream of giggles escaping her lips before she shouted, I'm home!
So I see,
Twilight replied. She sat up from her new position on the floor and picked up some of the books she had dropped while Nix bounced excitedly around her.
And how was your last day of school? Really fun,
Nix replied.
Shirley ordered some treats for us and she passed out our final grades. And how were your final grades?
Twilight asked. Nix was more than eager to meet Twilight's request. She magically opened her saddlebags and pulled out her grade report and held it out. Twilight took it in her own magic, and a smile spread onto her face as she read over it. Nix's grades weren't perfect, but still good for a filly who started 2/3 of the way through the school year.
So,
Nix asked a little nervously,
did I do good? Cheryl said I did good, but did I do good? You did great, Twilight replied, setting the grade report on a nearby table. In fact, I think we need to celebrate. What do you think, Spike? Should we take the rest of the afternoon off and do something fun?
Spike, who had been checking in returned books, paused from his work and looked over at Twilight.
What about the library? You're the one who's always saying we have to keep it open during the day so that ponies can check out books if they want. Oh, come on, Spike. It's a special occasion, Twilight said happily. The end of school only comes once a year. Hey, you don't have to ask me twice,
Spike said with a laugh. He made a few final notes in the library's ledger before slapping it shut and jogging over beside Twilight and Nix.
So, what are we going to do?
Twilight smiled and placed a few final books onto the shelves.
I think Nix should decide.
Nix blinked in disbelief, and the smile on her face grew even wider.
Really? I get to pick?
Yep, whatever you want to do, Nix, Twilight happily confirmed.
Can we go get lunch at Sugar Cube Corner?
Yes.
And then can we go play in the park?
Yes. Nix was on the verge of exploding with excitement. She bounded over towards the door and kept bouncing until Twilight and Spike had caught up. Then, together, the trio locked up the library for the afternoon and headed off into the direction of Sugar Cube Corner.
That was the best afternoon ever!
Nix cheered. Twilight laughed in agreement and looked over her shoulder. Both Nix and Spike were riding on her back as she carried them to the library. After eating lunch at Sugar Cube Corner, the trio had spent the entire afternoon playing in the park. They enjoyed a game of tag, played hide and seek, and Twilight even played the part of a pretend monster that Nix and Spike fought to defeat a number of times. It was the kind of random, unplanned day of fun that Twilight had often missed growing up because of all the time she spent studying. Yet, the day was coming to an end. The sun was nearing the far horizon, and Twilight was thankful it would soon be going down. It had been fun playing with Nix and Spike, but it had also been exhausting. Her body was worn out from all the playful running and laughing. Nix, on the other hoof, was still full of energy.
Can we do this again tomorrow?
She asked. Not tomorrow, Twilight replied with a tired smile. But maybe next weekend. After all, weren't you going to do something with your friends tomorrow?
Oh, yeah! We're each supposed to think up a bunch of things we could try over the summer to try and find our cutie marks.
Nix answered before her smile turned into a panicked frown.
Oh no, I forgot to start my list!
Twilight chuckled. I wouldn't worry about it too much, Nix. You have until noon tomorrow. I'm sure that if you start on the list tonight, you'll have more than enough things to share with your friends. Yeah, don't worry about it, Nix, Spike said from his seat on Twilight's back. You got all night to... Hey, Twilight. Yes, Spike. Spike leaned to one side and pointed with his claw. Isn't that Princess Celestia's chariot outside the library? Twilight, who had been paying most of her attention to Nix and Spike, looked forward. He was right. The princess's royal chariot was parked just outside the library with a pair of Pegasus guards hitched to the front and standing at attention. Without giving Spike or Nix any warning, Twilight broke into a panicked gallop. She burst into the library and drew the attention of Princess Celestia, who was sitting on a cushion at the reading table. Ah, Twilight, I was wondering where... Princess Celestia began only to be cut off. Twilight galloped around the room, horn glowing as she hurriedly cleaned the library. All the while, Spike and Nix clung onto her back for dear life. Princess, you should have told me you were coming. I would have cleaned the library. I would have organized a dinner at Sugar Cube Corner. I would have... Twilight's panic was interrupted as she felt herself get lifted off the ground with magic that was not her own. She twisted around in the air to face Princess Celestia, who was offering a gentle smile. Please calm down, Twilight. There's no reason to get yourself so worked up, the princess said soothingly. But... Twilight tried to protest. This is meant to be a casual visit, Princess Celestia said before she set Twilight down on the floor. And I apologize for not telling you in advance. Still, if I had, you would have gotten the whole town to decorate for my arrival, and I don't want that this evening. Twilight sighed in defeat, bowing her head. Of course, Princess, but you have to at least let me offer you something to eat. We were about to make dinner. I appreciate the offer, my faithful student, but I'm not hungry at the moment, Princess Celestia said. But please, don't let me stop you. It looks like you three have had a long day. Yes, but it was a fun day, too, Twilight replied before turning to look at Spike and Nix, who had managed to stay on her back despite her panicked galloping. Spike, Nix, would you two mind starting dinner? I know I said I'd cook tonight, but... Spike waved her off. Don't worry about it, Twilight. Come on, Nix, let's go rustle up some grub. Nix nodded her head eagerly. Both she and Spike jumped off of Twilight's back and quickly made their way into the kitchen. At the same time, Twilight moved over to the reading table and sat down across from Princess Celestia. She then put on a smile and asked, So, what brings you to Ponyville? Is there another dragon taking a nap in the mountains? No, but there is something important I need to talk to you about, Princess Celestia replied, her usual cheerful, almost whimsical tone growing more serious. The princess's horn glowed, and there was a flash from behind Twilight. When she turned to look, She saw a few lingering sparkles around the kitchen door. It was a spell she recognized immediately, having seen Princess Celestia use it before. It was a spell that blocked sound, which meant that what the princess wanted to talk about wasn't meant to be heard by Spike or Nyx. "Now," Princess Celestia continued calmingly, "Twilight Sparkle, I'm here because I need to talk to you about Nyx, who I know is not your cousin." Twilight felt her heart skip a beat, and she turned her head back towards Princess Celestia. She at first had the urge to continue her lie, but the knowing look in Celestia's eyes told Twilight she couldn't get away with that. It was just like the few times in the past she had been in trouble. There was no point in trying to lie to the princess. "How much do you know?" Twilight asked quietly. "I have my suspicions, which is part of the reason why I'm here. Before I say another word, I want you to be completely honest with me about Nyx. Tell me everything." Twilight could feel her mouth go dry and a hard knot form in her throat, but she began to speak all the same. She held nothing back, and made no effort to conceal any truth. She divulged every hard fact she could and presented every one of her own theories about Nyx's origins, existence, and nature to Princess Celestia. And, as Twilight spoke, Princess Celestia listened. She maintained her regal composure and didn't show a drop of emotion. The line on her lips was flat, and her eyes were steely and knowing. It was not the face of a teacher, mentor, or friend that Princess Celestia wore as she listened to Twilight. It was the face of a monarch. When she finally finished speaking, Twilight was exhausted. With every word she had said, she had felt the anxiety growing and twisting in her belly, and she was beginning to feel just a little bit weak because of it. But now she was done. Now she had said everything she could say about Nyx, and it was Princess Celestia's turn to speak. "Thank you for your honesty, Twilight," the princess began, offering a truly warm smile with her words. "And I want to say how proud of you I am. Few ponies would have done what you did. Not only did you help a filly lost in the forest, but you took her in. You must care about her greatly if you feel it was necessary to keep this a secret." I do," Twilight replied, letting herself smile a little. "Might," Celestia began, coughing once and trying to improve the strength in her voice. "Might I ask how much you care?" "What do you mean, Princess?" "What is Nyx to you?" Celestia elaborated. "Are you simply a caregiver, or does Nyx perhaps look upon you as a friend?" Twilight chuckled nervously, rubbing the back of her neck.
"Oh, well, actually, it's funny you should ask that. Nyx kind of thinks of me as a mother."
Twilight grew very quiet, muttering out her final few words so quietly that they were unintelligible to the princess.
"Could you please say that again, Twilight?" She thinks of me as a mother,"
Twilight admitted. Those words ushered in a deadly silence onto the library. Princess Celestia sat perfectly still for a time, as if Twilight's admission had locked up her brain. Then she began to frown, her regal composure failing as a mixed expression of exhaustion and guilt formed on her face.
"Twilight,"
Princess Celestia said before sighing.
"I wish you hadn't told me that. I wish you had just let me believe you were caregiver to Nyx and nothing more, for you have only made what I have to do that much more difficult."
Twilight tensed, leaning in anxiously.
"What do you have to do?" "Twilight, your theories about the night you were pony-napped are correct," the princess said. "Bastian Yorsitz led a team of unicorns in studying the spell performed by the cult, and he confirmed that it was intended to resurrect Nightmare Moon. In addition to that, the cult had the shreds."
Twilight blinked in confusion.
"What shreds?" "You may not have noticed them, but when you used the elements of harmony on my sister, a number of shreds were left behind. These shreds held lingering amounts of Luna's old power, and were echoes of the mare she used to be. I had entrusted Spell Nexus with studying these shreds to see if they were dangerous or not, and what, if anything, needed to be done with them. The shreds, however, were stolen. We know now that the cult ponies who pony-napped you were responsible for the theft, and that they took the shreds to use them in the resurrection spell."
Princess Celestia took a deep breath, shoring herself up to tell Twilight something she wouldn't want to hear.
"Thus, Nyx did not simply come from that spell. She was made with those lingering shreds. Nyx is the very essence of the mare my sister used to be, given a body and mind of her own. Twilight,
She is Nightmare Moon.
No. No, 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 no!
Twilight shouted, shaking her head furiously.
That doesn't mean anything. She doesn't want to take over Equestria. She doesn't want to hurt any pony. She actually likes the sun and...
Please, Twilight. I take no joy in this. Celestia interrupted, trying to calm her student down. But while Nyx currently shows no signs of being the Nightmare Moon we know, you cannot deny that she could be a threat to Equestria. For all we know, the filly you care for could be a ruse. Nightmare Moon could be disguising herself. She could be biding her time, waiting for an opportunity to strike. Even if that is not the case, you just admitted to me that Nyx has some of Nightmare Moon's memories, Princess Celestia pointed out. Should more of her memories return, Nyx could also remember her hatred of me and her jealousy for the sun. She could become a threat to Equestria once again.
But Nyx would never do that,
Twilight argued, strong conviction in her voice.
Nyx hates those memories. She was crying when she remembered them because she remembered wanting to hurt me and she couldn't understand why.
Twilight. Celestia tried to interrupt again, but this time Twilight continued her rant.
And I've thought about it too. I thought that maybe Nyx was just trying to trick me, that she was just pretending to be a filly. I've realized too that Nyx could be, that she is Nightmare Moon, especially after what happened at the Learned Playdate, but I don't think she's trying to trick me. I have no evidence to prove it, but I think that...
Twilight stopped there, shaking her head once.
No, I know Nyx is a good pony. She's good, and...
Twilight found herself silenced, not by harsh words or anything so violent. In the span of a few moments, Princess Celestia had circled the table and pulled Twilight into an embrace. She held her student with her neck in one of her hooves. "Please stop, Twilight," Princess Celestia asked, her voice ringing with the echoes of desperation. "You are only making this more difficult for me. I am sorry, but Nyx is Nightmare Moon, and I must take her to Canterlot with me."
"But why?"
Twilight asked in desperation.
"She isn't bad. She hasn't tried to hurt you. Why do you have to take her?"
"Because I must, Twilight," Celestia admitted, her words ringing out in the silence of the library. "My dreams have been haunted with visions of Nyx growing into Nightmare Moon. I see her threatening not just Equestria, but every pony I hold dear. I see her threatening you, my sister and the kingdom. I see her stealing everything away from me, and I'm powerless to stop her." Celestia began to hug Twilight more tightly, bitter memories surfacing in her mind. "Powerless. Just like I was unable to save Luna 1,000 years ago. It is my duty to do what is necessary, Twilight. It was my duty 1,000 years ago to defeat my own sister so the sun could rise over Equestria again. It was my duty, and I would do it again. My actions saved lives, brought joy back to the ponies of this kingdom, but that day still weighs heavily on my heart." A tremor began to enter Celestia's voice, her conviction wavering. "And this is something I have to do, Twilight. I cannot wait until Nightmare Moon has risen again before acting. I cannot give her a chance to take away my sister again, to hurt any pony. Especially those I care for so dearly. I cannot let her have that chance." Twilight tore herself away from Princess Celestia, tears streaming down her face.
"Okay, I'll admit that she came from Nightmare Moon, that she has her memories. I'll even admit that she is Nightmare Moon reborn. I'll admit all that. But she's not the same Nightmare Moon my friends and I defeated. She's a different pony now. She's changed. And I won't let you take her away for the things your sister did."
Twilight gasped when she realized just what she had said, and covered her mouth with her hoof. Princess Celestia looked as if she had just been stabbed in the heart, her student's words cutting deep.
"Princess, I didn't mean. I would never."
Twilight tried to apologize. "No, you're right," Princess Celestia said in a solemn tone as she turned away from Twilight. "Back then, Luna and Nightmare Moon were one and the same, and thus they share the guilt of what they've done. I've tried to assure Luna that she has been forgiven, but my sister still carries the burden of her actions."
"But if you've forgiven Princess Luna, can't you forgive Nyx too?"
Twilight pleaded.
"You misunderstand, Twilight. I am not taking Nyx away to punish her. I am taking her to, hopefully, put my fears to rest," Celestia explained. "Spell Nexus has prepared an old, powerful spell that will allow me to take a glimpse at who Nyx really is. It is a spell that will let me see into both Nyx's mind and her soul. In that glimpse, if I find nothing more than the traces of what Nightmare Moon used to be, then I will return Nyx to you with the sunrise." "And what if you find more than a few traces?" asked Twilight. "As long as Nyx does not contain the malice, jealousy, and hatred that once defined Nightmare Moon, then she will be returned to you," Celestia assured her student. "It was those feelings and emotions which drove my sister. If they do not exist in Nyx, then she cannot truly be the same mare my sister once was. This is a spell that can also be repeated. Thus, as Nyx grows, we can continue to monitor the mare she is becoming." "But what if you find that she has these feelings? What if you did find—" "Twilight, don't make me tell you something you don't want to hear," Celestia almost begged. "No!" Twilight raged, picking up on the truth behind Princess Celestia's words. "I won't let you hurt her or banish her to the moon. Yes, Nyx is Nightmare Moon, but she is also my daughter, and I'm telling you she's changed. That should be enough for you, or don't you trust me?" "I do trust you, but—" Celestia tried to reply, only to be cut off. "Then listen and believe me," Twilight pleaded. "Nyx is not a bad pony anymore." Celestia approached Twilight again, and while she tried to shy away, the princess pulled her into a comforting embrace for a second time. "Twilight," Princess Celestia began, a single tear rolling down her cheek. "I am sorry. I promise, I swear to you, that unless I am utterly convinced Nyx is a threat, I will return her to you in the morning. I will do what is necessary to protect Equestria, but you know me. I am not heartless. If Nyx has changed, if she is not the Nightmare Moon she used to be, then I will give her the chance she deserves. It is no less than what I did for my sister. Once the transformation has taken hold, once she had become Nightmare Moon, I pleaded with Luna. I begged her to lower the moon, to become my sister again. It was only when I saw that there was no hope that I used the elements of harmony. So please," Celestia whispered. "Please, Twilight Sparkle. I ask this of you not as a princess of Equestria, or as your teacher, but as a pony who fears for those she cares about. Let me take Nyx. Allow me to put these fears to rest, for you do not know how much they torture me."
Twilight squirmed weakly in the princess's embrace, trying to escape, but her resistance was failing. The doubts that had haunted her more than once rose up in full force, filling her mind. Celestia was right. It was better to be safe than sorry. It was better to know for sure whether or not Nyx was a threat to Equestria. Beginning to break down, Twilight allowed herself to sink into Princess Celestia's embrace.
"I've wondered sometimes who Nyx really is. I've seen what she can do. I've seen the power she holds and the memories she has. Still, even if she is Nightmare Moon, that doesn't mean she could grow up to be evil, does it? Can't she still be a good pony? Can't she change?" "Yes, Twilight, she can," Princess Celestia said, attempting to comfort her. "Any pony can change. I've seen you grow into a strong young mare with dear friends, and I know that if any pony could heal Nightmare Moon of her pain, then it would be you, my faithful student. Still, it seems you share in my fears, so please, let me take Nyx to Canterlot. Allow me this one test, and let us put both of our doubts to rest."
Twilight's last defenses fell at that invitation, of the test not only ending Celestia's fears, but killing off the doubts that had, at times, flitted into her own mind. It was a chance to be sure, to know without a doubt whether or not Nyx was a threat to Equestria.
Okay, Princess," Twilight admitted in defeat. "But can't I at least come with her? She'll be scared without me." "I'm sorry, Twilight, but Spell Nexus has asked that you remain here in Ponyville during the test. He doesn't want you there watching, should the worst be revealed, and I feel he's right. I do not want to make this harder for you than it has to be."
Twilight choked up and broke down in Celestia's embrace. She cried quietly, and Princess Celestia let her have that cry. The princess held her, and waited until Twilight was about to dry her tears. Then, and only then, did she pull Twilight away and begin making her way towards the kitchen door. After sucking in a breath to regain her own composure, Princess Celestia flicked her horn and removed the spell of silence from the kitchen door. The sounds of cooking started to echo into the library's main room, breaking the uneasy silence as Celestia pushed her head into the kitchen.
"Oh, hey, Princess,"
Spike greeted.
"Change your mind about eating dinner with us?"
"No, I'm afraid not, and..." The princess was forced to pause and clear her throat and bring back some of her normal, motherly voice. "And I must ask that Nix come back to Canterlot with me." Spike and Nix paused from their dinner preparations.
"What for?"
Spike asked.
Twilight has told me that Nix is an alicorn, and I simply believe it is in her best interest to have her examined to ensure she's healthy.
"Can't you have a doctor come here or something?"
While I could ask my doctor to come to Ponyville, he also serves as a doctor for many in the royal palace, and I cannot, in good conscience, ask him to drop everything else he has scheduled to make a trip here."
Princess Celestia lied, keeping up her regal composure in the hopes that Spike would believe the story.
"I guess that makes sense,"
Spike eventually replied.
"But why now? Isn't it kind of late?"
My intention is to take Nix back with me this evening and have her see the doctor as soon as we arrive,"
the princess explained smoothly.
"Then I thought Nix might like to spend the night in the castle. I can even show her Twilight's old bedroom at my school for gifted unicorns."
Nix lit up with excitement at the prospect of not only getting to see the prestigious school, but also getting to spend the night at the castle. On more than one occasion, Twilight had told Nix bedtime stories about the time she had spent with Princess Celestia, learning magic and being the princess's private student.
"Well, I guess if Twilight's okay with it,"
Spike said, not entirely sure about all he was being told. Still, like Twilight, he had never been given a reason to doubt Princess Celestia, and he had no reason to start at the moment. Nix, on the other hand, was bouncing with excitement, willingly following the princess as she walked out of the kitchen. Yet, as Princess Celestia moved to the library's door, Nix glanced over to Twilight, who was sitting with her head down, eyes hidden by the bangs of her hair. Almost instantly, the excitement that had been filling Nix died away. Before Princess Celestia could stop her, Nix was over by Twilight, looking anxiously.
"Twilight?"
she asked gently.
"What's wrong?"
Twilight didn't answer, didn't even turn to look at Nix. She just kept looking down at the floor, body trembling as tears flowed from her eyes.
"Twilight?"
Nix ventured to ask again, only for Princess Celestia to move beside her.
"Twilight will be all right."
The princess tried to reassure Nix, using a hoof to gently guide her towards the door.
"Now come along. If we hurry, we might be able to get back to Canterlot in time to watch Luna raise the moon."
Nix squirmed away from Princess Celestia, running back over to Twilight.
"No, I don't want to go anymore. Twilight, what's wrong? Twilight, why are you crying?" "Nix, please, we need to leave,"
stressed Princess Celestia.
"No, I don't want to go."
Nix snapped. She got right up beside Twilight and nuzzling one of her legs.
"I want to stay here with Twilight."
Princess Celestia took a step towards Nix, her tone growing firmer.
"I promise you'll be back in the morning, but I need you to come with me." "No, I don't want to see the doctor. I want to stay here with Twilight." "I'm sorry, Nix,"
the princess said, struggling to stay strong as her horn began to glow.
"But you have to come with me."
Slowly, Princess Celestia began to wrap her magic around Nix, levitating her away from Twilight. Nix began to toss and turn in the magic, trying to free herself even though she had no chance of escaping the levitation spell. All the while, she began to panic and scream.
"No! Let me go! I don't want to go! I want to stay here!"
"What's going on?"
Spike asked, starting to open the kitchen door. Princess Celestia, however, quickly diverted some of her magic, slamming the door shut and locking it. Spike began to pound and shout from the other side, but she ignored his protest.
Open the door.
Her conviction was already
Twilight!
failing, crumbling like a sandcastle being eaten away by ocean waves. She needed to leave with Nix quickly before she lost the will to do what had to be done. Celestia quickly slipped out of the door, Nix floating in the air behind her. Nix had now given up trying to free herself from the magic, and was now focusing on Twilight, flailing and calling out to her in panic.
"Twilight! Twilight, please don't let her take me, Twilight. I don't want to go. Please, I want to stay here, Twilight. If I did something bad, I'm sorry. Please, I don't want to go, Twilight. Twilight!
The last of Nyx's cries were muffled as Princess Celestia shut the door to the library, carrying Nyx out to the waiting chariot. The princess motioned to her royal guard, who quickly snapped to attention and prepared to take off as she stepped into the chariot. It was then, seeing that she was about to be taken away, that Nyx cried out with all the force and volume her small voice would allow.
Mommy!
I'm sorry, Twilight, but Spellnexus has asked that you remain here in Ponyville during the test. He doesn't want you there watching, should the worst be revealed.
Twilight's mind entered a spiral with those words. She stared down at her hooves and her mind locked up, at war with herself. She became numb to the world. She could hear Spike and Princess Celestia talking, but could not process what they were saying. She could not feel the floor beneath her hooves, or the tears running down her face. Her mind was too preoccupied with its internal struggle to handle anything else. Princess Celestia was right. Every argument she gave was valid, and she was just taking Nyx away to have her tested. If Twilight was right, if what she believed was right, Nyx would be back at the library in the morning. No worse for wear. On the other hoof, if Nyx was the same Nightmare Moon, this was for the best. Princess Celestia would be able to stop her before she threatened any pony. Equestria would be safe and secure. It all made sense, but still, part of Twilight raged against the logic. The pure emotion in Twilight's memories of Nyx clashed with the princess's logical arguments. The smart thing to do was let Nyx be tested, but Twilight's heart was telling her that she shouldn't let Nyx go. That, and Twilight couldn't ignore the fact that Princess Celestia had been her mentor for years. She would trust the princess with her life, just as the princess had trusted her and her friends to defeat Nightmare Moon. If there was one pony she could trust to take care of Nyx, to be fair and forgiving, it would be the
Mommy!
Twilight's head snapped up and her eyes narrowed into dots. From outside, Nyx's cry pierced into the night. The cry rang loudly in the library and surged deep into Twilight's mind, and broke the mental stalemate that had gripped her. In short order, Twilight realized all too late that she had zoned out, and that Princess Celestia was gone, that she could hear Spike pounding on the kitchen door, and that Nyx was nowhere to be seen. Heart skipping a beat, Twilight scrambled to her hooves. It didn't matter if Nyx was Nightmare Moon or not. It didn't matter if someday Nyx would bring about the destruction of Equestria, and it didn't matter how much she trusted the princess. Nyx was her daughter, and she had to protect her. She understood why Princess Celestia was scared, but this wasn't right. Nyx was her daughter, and she was her mother, and no real mother just lets her daughter get taken away. Sprinting, Twilight galloped for the door and burst through it. She couldn't really hope to face off against the royal guards, let alone Princess Celestia. Still, she couldn't let Nyx get taken away either. She could try and appeal to the princess one more time. Beg her to be allowed to stay with Nyx. If that didn't work, maybe she could at least calm Nyx down and assure her that everything was going to be all right. Twilight didn't know what she was going to do, but she had to try and do something. Nyx deserved that much. Yet, by the time Twilight got outside, it was too late. The chariot had taken off and was now flying away. Twilight tried to catch it, eyes turned skyward. She had begun to call on her own magic, hoping to teleport herself into the chariot, but her concentration was abruptly broken. In focusing on the chariot, Twilight had taken her eyes off the path ahead and was unable to see the rock she was racing towards. She caught her hoof on that rock, and she tripped, tumbled, and crashed into the ground with a brutal thud. By the time Twilight was able to climb back to her hooves, the royal chariot was even farther away, being whisked back to Canterlot by the strong wings of the royal guards who pulled it. She had no hope of catching it, no hope of teleporting onto it. Nyx was gone. Twilight broke down into tears right there, not caring who saw her or where she was as she cried openly. She had just done the unforgivable. Even if Nyx was returned to her the next day, even if Nyx was officially decreed to not be a threat to Equestria, she would never be able to forgive herself for what she had just done. It all came rushing in too fast, the realizations and the heartaches filling Twilight to the brim. She couldn't cry hard enough or fast enough. The pain was just too severe. In the end, She couldn't contain it all and screamed. She cried out into the night with the loudest, most pain-filled voice that had ever escaped her lips. Nix! Spell Nexus stood, slate-gray eyes focused on the chariot that approached from the sky. He stood just outside a door, the entrance into the grand throne room of the palace. Inside, the children of Nightmare worked to set up the ritual, though they did not look the part of Nightmare Moon's followers. No, for the moment, the cult simply looked like normal ponies Nexus had recruited to assist in the delicate spell. The royal chariot came down from the sky, landing at the door. Princess Celestia stepped down, looking as if she had been crying. Behind her, a pair of guards moved to the chariot and brought the sleeping Nyx. "Are you all right?" Nexus asked, faking concern.
No, I'm not,"
Princess Celestia replied, trying to keep her composure, but finding it difficult.
"I just stole away a filly from her mother. If Nyx isn't Nightmare Moon, then what I've just done is inexcusable."
"Such a task should not have fallen to one with a heart as tender as yours, Your Highness," Nexus offered solemnly. "But hopefully, you shall be able to return her to Twilight unharmed in the morning."
"No. The harm has already been done, Spell Nexus."
Celestia disagreed as the two moved into the throne room. Nexus offered no words in reply as they moved across the hall. In the center of the grand space, the ritual had been constructed. 4 stone columns stood in a perfect square around a central point, torches burning at their tops. Unicorns that Nexus had brought in to aid with the spell, secret members of the Children of Nightmare, fed their magic into the columns, causing them to glow with ancient ruins.
"How does the spell work, Nexus?"
Princess Celestia asked quietly as she watched her guards place Nyx into the center of the elaborate ritual, placing her gently on a single, soft pillow. "You needn't not concern yourself with the mechanics," Nexus assured the princess. "The spell will handle all the work. All you need to do is stand in the center and feed your magic into the columns. When the spell has built up enough energy, it will activate." Princess Celestia nodded, striding into the center of the ritual while all the unicorns, Pegasi, and earth ponies that were working moved to the sides of the room. Nexus was the only one that stayed close, standing just on the edge of the spell circle as he watched her with slate-gray eyes. Celestia approached the center of the spell slowly, her towering shadow falling over the sleeping form of Nyx. The only reason that she was asleep was because Celestia had placed a sedation spell upon her during the flight to Canterlot. Still, even in her sleep, Nyx looked scared, and it made Princess Celestia wince. Shutting her eyes, Princess Celestia bent in close to Nyx and whispered a prayer to the filly.
"Please, my little pony, please let Twilight be right about you."
Her horn began to glow, and slowly, trails of energy began to form between her and the 4 evenly spaced columns. As they formed, the threads of magic moved in dance, as if caressed by an intangible wind. With each passing moment, more and more of spiderweb-like threads of magic formed. The spell built up in power, and Nexus slowly circled, staying just beyond the border of the ritual. He passed behind one of the columns, and when he re-emerged from the other side, his eyes had turned turquoise, glinting in the light given off by the spell.
"How much magic does this require, Nexus?"
Princess Celestia called out, her voice strained in her effort. "Just a little more, Your Highness. The columns just need a little more charge." Princess Celestia tossed her head, lines of concentration forming on her brow as she put more of her magic into the spell. She then felt a twinge in her horn. The spell reached full power, and she prepared herself for it to activate. She didn't know what to expect. Perhaps she would see visions, or see Nyx transform into the mare she would become. Yet, the nature of the magic in the spell changed. The stone columns, which had been glowing pastel colors, shifted to a threatening red tone. Wow, wow, wow. Celestia then felt something hit her in the chest, like she had been bucked hard. The force was enough that her hooves were lifted off the ground, and she was sent flying across the room. Her flight was then ended when she crashed into the throne room doors. The force of the impact knocked the wind from her chest, and it left Princess Celestia momentarily stunned. When she did recover, however, she scrambled to her hooves and looked in the direction of the spell. All the ponies that had been around the room had converged on the spell. They all moved inside the ring drawn on the floor, and standing in the very center of them all was Nexus. He looked across the room at Princess Celestia, turquoise eyes dancing in joyous victory. "For the eternal night, for Equestria's true queen!" Nexus called, grinning devilishly before his horn lit up. Energy then began to crackle across the stone columns, their harsh red color growing brighter and brighter. Wow, wow, wow. The light soon enveloped Nexus and all the other ponies, and then, with a final flash, they all disappeared. It was then, all too late, that Princess Celestia realized the treachery that thrived in her royal court. Nexus and the rest of the Children of Nightmare appeared in the center of Ponyville, their arrival announced with a flash of light and a rumbling sound of thunder. It was a thunder that woke every pony in the town from their sleep, many drawing outside to see where the noise had come from. "Form a perimeter," Nexus ordered the ponies around him. "Let none draw near. The spell that will finish our queen's resurrection has already begun, but it will take time for her to draw in the magic needed." The cult members nodded and quickly spread out. The Earth ponies and unicorns formed a tight ring around the still glowing red pillars while the Pegasi took to the sky and circled, becoming a threatening air force. Other members of the cult who had been told to wait in Ponyville quickly began to rush from the nearby streets and alleyways. They brought with them saddlebags filled with cloaks. All the ponies present quickly donned their uniforms and changed their eyes to turquoise. Among those who had been waiting in Ponyville were Nightwind, Greygale, and Stonewall, Nexus's lieutenants. Joined by them was another in armor, a thin earth pony with a regal blue mane and a gently turned mustache. To the locals he was known as Haute Cuisine, a waiter at the local restaurant. However, to the Children of Nightmare and Pinkie Pie, he had been a spy at Nyx's school. "So, is it really her?" Greygale asked, looking at the black filly who was still sedated by Princess Celestia's spell. "Yes. While Princess Celestia would doubt this filly's power, I can see the truth. Our queen lies before us," Nexus assured, looking skyward. The red glowing columns were acting as magical magnets, drawing in the wild magical energy that lingered in the air. Among that magic were the trails of indigo smoke, which had begun to circle and spin, spiraling down like water in a whirlpool before feeding into the sleeping Nyx, who physically began to mature, quickly outgrowing her vest, glasses, and headband. "Should we be worried about the villagers?" Stonewall asked. He looked over his shoulder and took note of the crowd of ponies that was growing beyond the perimeter formed by the rest of the cult. The residents of the small community looked on in confusion, fear, and awe. "Our brothers and sisters will keep the crowd at bay, and Princess Celestia will not be able to follow us quickly enough to interfere," Spell Nexus assured before smiling down at Nyx, who had already grown much larger. "Look, our queen is already at half the size she should be. We have nothing to fear. No pony can stop us." Twilight galloped at a full sprint. She had seen the flash of light, heard the thunder, but, more importantly, sensed the powerful surge of magic. She didn't know what was going on, but for that much magic to be used up at one moment, it had to be something very large. After rounding a corner, Twilight slowed and joined the crowd of ponies gathered around the glowing redstone columns in the center of town. She jumped a few times, struggling to see past every pony else. She caught glimpses of the ponies near the columns and felt the blood run cold in her veins. It was the cult who had pony-napped her. In a panic, Twilight tried to push her way through the crowd and get closer. She didn't know what the cult was doing at the center of the village, but she knew it was going to be bad. Still, she would try to stop them. She couldn't just let them finish whatever spell they were casting. She just had to get through the crowd. She just had to... A crack of thunder made Twilight stop in her tracks and drew her eyes skyward. Above the town, trails of indigo smoke circled, conducting sparks of fierce blue energy. A second crack of thunder came as a ring of energy spread out through the air, stretching across the night sky like a ripple across a pond. The ring of energy, however, then abruptly stopped and began flowing back. It collapsed into a single tight sphere in the air, taking with it the indigo smoke and the other lingering magics that had been floating in the sky. It all compressed and compacted into a single, glowing sphere of energy. Then, with a third and final crack of thunder, the energy shot down into the ground, striking the center of the spell like lightning. Nyx awoke just as the magic fed into her. Her body crackled and tingled with the last traces of energy, and for a few moments she was unable to move. Then, she was able to feel her heart beating in her chest and the air in her lungs. She was able to stretch her wings, and slowly she climbed to her hooves. She stood up, taller than she had ever stood before in her life. No, that wasn't quite true. She had been this tall before, though it had been a long time ago. Once on her hooves, Nyx looked down at the ponies that had been standing around, and they quickly retreated under her gaze. They bowed as low as they could, pressing their noses against the ground in respect for her. And, as Nyx looked upon them, she began to smile, and then she began to laugh. She laughed, but it wasn't the giggle of a filly. It began as a dry chuckle, but then grew in volume, becoming loud and haughty. She then raised her head, looking at the night sky as her laughter became crazed and maniacal. It rang out, silencing all other noise and sounds across Ponyville. It was the laughter of some pony who had just realized a great, cruel, and terrible truth. Nyx finally understood everything. She understood why she woke up in the Everfree Forest when she did. She understood why she had the memories of fighting Twilight Sparkle. She understood why she was able to say those lines in that school play so well. She remembered what she was. Who she was. Nyx turned her gaze away from the night sky and looked across the crowd of ponies that filled the center of Ponyville. They were ponies who had towered over her moments before, but were now dwarfed by her stature. She remembered another time when she stood over them, looking upon their sun-loving faces. She recalled how, on the day of the summer sun celebration, they looked on her with fear, even though they didn't know who she was. And now they were looking on her with greater fear, for now they knew who she was. It should have made her happy. Inspiring such fear should have filled her with great joy. Yet it made her feel uneasy. Nyx gave her head a slight shake to banish that small, stray thought. She was enjoying this. She was sure of it. She put on a wicked smile and spoke to the crowd with a voice that was regal, smooth, and threatening. "My friends, neighbors, subjects, why do you look upon me with such fear?" Nyx asked. "You, of all ponies, should feel honored, for you will be able to tell your children and your children's children that it was you who witnessed your queen's rebirth, that it was you who witnessed her moment of ascension and enlightenment, that it was you who showed her kindness when she was incomplete." Nyx took a step forward, moving past the cloaked ponies who bowed to her. She walked into the crowd, and those ponies in her way quickly cleared a path, as they should. "Yes, I was among you this entire time, though I was by no means trying to deceive you. No, I truly had no idea where I was, what was going on, or who I was, and yet you graciously accepted me into your community. When I take what is rightfully mine, I'll be sure to remember your kindness, as long as you obey me and give me the respect I deserve. There are, however, those who deserve to be mentioned," Nyx continued as she walked through the crowd. "Ponies who deserve special thanks, for without them I may not be standing here tonight with my mind clear and power restored. Among those are two very special fillies. Now I wonder where they could be. Ah, there you are, Diamond Tiara and Silver Spoon." An entire group of ponies stepped to the side, clearing a path between Nyx and the two young bullies who had tormented her so. She approached them slowly, and her smile only grew with each step. She towered over them now like a giant, and now they cowered in fear of her. "Yes, every pony, take a good, long look at these two. When I was still but a meek, weak filly, it was they who set me up with a prank. It was they who sent me into the Everfree Forest, and it was there, amongst the trees, that I came across some lingering bits of my magic. It was because of them that I regained my most important memories, and regained enough of my power to attract the attention of those who would finish the spell that gave me a life and body of my own. So," Nyx continued, her voice taking on a venomously sweet tone, "you could say that they are directly and fully responsible for me being able to stand among you as I am. For without that fateful trip, I may have simply stayed a harmless, timid little filly." Nyx leaned her head down, staring at the two fillies who were now terrified beyond belief of the pony that they had once bullied and teased. Nyx, however, wore the gentlest of smiles.
Thank you, you two, from the bottom of my heart for helping me change from the biggest loser in Ponyville into the mare I was meant to be.
At that, Nyx stood up and smirked maliciously as several ponies began to glare at the two fillies with anger and contempt. Oh, yes. This was a revenge much sweeter than simply pulling them into a mud pit. Maybe her new subjects would do her a favor and take care of the two eyesores for her.
Nyx, is that you? Why are you doing this? What's wrong?
Nyx froze at hearing the small voice. Her body became rigid, and her dragon-shaped irises pulsated feverishly with surprise. She turned to the source of the voice, and saw a single young filly staring up at her. It was Scootaloo, who was looking at her not with eyes filled with fear, but ones brimming with confusion. For a moment, Nyx remembered that Scootaloo lived near the center of town, which would explain why she was so close in the crowd. Nyx, however, could not stand to meet Scootaloo's gaze or speak a direct reply to her question. She could only make a violent turn and stride away as quickly as the crowd could clear a path. It was only after she had distanced herself from Scootaloo that Nyx stopped and cast her head back.
No, I am not your friend. Or, more accurately, I am no longer her.
With those few words spoken, Nyx turned her head forward again, searching for some pony else to focus on. She then caught the sight of a familiar mulberry-colored pony in the crowd, Cheerilee. Instantly, Nyx's mind latched on to verbally attacking her, if only to forget that Scootaloo was watching her from a distance.
Hello, Cheerilee, my teacher. Yes, I am no longer Nyx, but I am sure you could tell all these ponies who I really am. After all, you saw the resemblance just as every pony else did. And was it not you who called me wicked and dastardly? Was that not why I was perfect for the part in your little spring play? Cheerilee shakily took a few steps back, cringing as Nyx's mystical indigo mane held her chin. It was easy for Nyx to see the fear in Cheerilee's eyes, and how intently she watched her star field of a mane. Cheerilee feared it as if it were a snake that would strike out at any moment, and Nyx enjoyed the fear in her teacher's eyes. Yet her attention was drawn away from Cheerilee when she noticed movement out of the corner of her eye. She turned away from Cheerilee and approached the pony that was forcing her way through the crowd. The pony was a mare, a purple unicorn, who came to a stop directly in front of Nyx. She looked ragged, was panting, and her face was stained with tears, some fresh while others long dry. Hello, Twilight Sparkle, my savior, my best friend, and the only one I have ever called Mother,
Nyx said coolly.
Are you here to lie to me again? Tell me that I'm not a bitter, vengeance-driven mare. Tell me that the most obvious answer is wrong, even when the proof is right in front of your face. Are you here to comfort me with false words? Or are you here to apologize to me? To beg and grovel at my hooves? To admit that you were wrong to keep me in the dark? Or were you simply so desperate to care for a filly of your own that you didn't want to believe the truth?
Twilight couldn't bring herself to say anything, which made Nyx furrow her brows and grit her teeth.
Well, answer me!
Nyx shouted, anger welling up inside her at the mere sight of Twilight. It should have been pure anger, pure hatred for what Twilight Sparkle had done in the past. But at the same time, Nyx felt her eyes trying to water. Nyx didn't know why she suddenly felt like crying, but she forced her eyes to stop. She would not cry in front of the crowd. She instead waited. She waited for Twilight to say something, but when no words came, Nyx huffed and glared her down.
Huh. You have nothing to say. Well, that's fine. Because your actions have said enough. You conspired with Celestia, you let her take me away, and you abandoned the only pony whom you have ever called a daughter.
Nyx turned back to Twilight, her voice as cold as ice as she once more forced back the tears trying to form in her eyes.
I suppose that shows how little I meant to you. Well, I don't need you anymore, and I'm ashamed that I ever called you my mother.
With that, Nyx stomped a hoof, stepping away from Twilight. She did not allow herself to look back, forcing her gaze on the cloaked ponies that were approaching her. From those ponies, one blue unicorn stepped forward and quickly bowed in her presence.
Our most powerful and majestic queen,
the unicorn of the group said.
Celestia and Luna can be seen in the distance along with a large contingent of the royal guard. It would not be wise to linger here and face the royal sisters. You are reborn, but your power may not be complete. Let us retreat so that you may gather your strength. Then, when you are ready, you can bring the princesses beneath your hooves."
Nyx looked at the unicorn, smiling. Already there were those who were willing to accept her, to regard her with the same respect others had for the royal sisters. "I assume you have some place prepared?"
"Of course, my queen,"
the unicorn said with the utmost reverence.
"Take us in your magic, and I shall guide you to the fortress we have already made ready for your rule."
Nyx smiled and gave an approving nod to the unicorn. She then looked back at the rest of the crowd, raising her voice once more in a deafening volume.
"Remember this night well, for it marks the beginning of the end in the old order of Equestria. Treasure the days that come, for they shall be your last. Soon the night shall last forever, and I, Nightmare Moon, shall be Equestria's one true queen."
With that, Nightmare Moon broke into maniacal laughter and her mystical mane swirled. The magical aura consumed all the cloaked cult ponies, and in a single flash, they all disappeared into the night. In the wake of their departure, Nightmare Moon and the cult left the shocked ponies of Ponyville to stand in utter silence. Even the arrival of Princesses Celestia and Luna didn't erase the dread that was pulsing through the crowd. There would be no soothing their fears, no erasing of their concerns. The truth was simple and undeniable. Nightmare Moon had returned. And that was Chapter 10 of Past Sins. I hope y'all enjoyed it. I'm gonna go take a nap now. The original recording length as of this moment is an hour and a half, because apparently I need to do one of those every week now. Whee! Sleepy time. So, I bid you a good evening, fillies and gentle colts. Take care. This is Vos de Sueños signing off. Safe travels, every pony.